To us, Christ City means God's people loving the Lord, worshiping together, the biblical
Christ City is a place where the gospel is central to everything that we do.
Christ City is my spiritual home.
It's where I want to gather every Sunday.
To worship on Sunday morning and also midweek programs.
The word home keeps coming to mind for me.
We learn about Jesus and we learn about our
We enjoy the community groups so much.
Gathering with the church weekly is very helpful to the schedule.
Christ City is, for me, tangible evidence of God's faithfulness, that when He leads you, you can trust Him.
We would like to go back, further back, actually a lot back. 1970, when we first moved to Canada, and we were looking for a church, and some people suggested us that Vancouver MB Church on 43rd was a good church to go to.
We had wonderful times here over the years. But then there came also a time where the church got smaller. People moved, people left.
There was a lot of people that were moving out of the city and we were losing members and the congregation was diminishing in numbers. And so it was more difficult to do church.
We're having trouble getting traction, and there was a real challenge getting that critical mass.
We were wondering, how will this all continue? And we were a little discouraged.
There was a weekly prayer meeting that was happening on Monday nights, and we were praying for some revival at our church.
We were really praying that this building would become a place that would be filled with families and children from the local community.
One day we heard that the elders of the church were gathering and seeking the Lord on how to continue here. We heard also that they were thinking outside the box. Well, what would that mean?
We needed an out-of-the-box solution, not just a standard go and hire another pastor, canvass the area for more congregants. It needed something new, it needed something different. We heard about this other church that was being planted in the area, and we didn't know anything about them. And we heard from a friend that we should get in touch with this other church and see what was happening there. And so we had a meeting as South Hill leadership together with a guy named Brett Landry.
I remember sensing a call to plant a church in Vancouver since before we got married. And we hadn't been here. We didn't know the city. We didn't know the need. We didn't know why. We were living in Red Deer, Alberta at the time.
Brett had this undeniable call to plant a church in Vancouver. And I had no choice but to get on my knees before God and really truly ask Him if He would lead us. The Lord gave me this verse that day that says, Jesus said, "Truly I say to you, there is no one who has left house or brother, or sister or mother, or father or children, or lands, for my sake, for the gospel, who will not receive 100-fold.
The Lord had to form us into the kind of people who could plant and lead a church. The Lord had to build into us a lot of things. We were never alone in the conversation. We were never alone in the journey, yet it was a massive step of faith.
We were connected with Brett and Allison, who were going to plant a church here in South Vancouver.
And he came in and he shared the vision of Christ City Church. And he talked about a vision and a network of neighborhood churches. And we thought, wow, this really sounds like something we can get after.
And it very quickly became clear to us that the best course of action for us would be to turn the keys over to Christ City and let there be a fresh church plant.
They approached us and said, we believe that we are called to conclude our season of ministry at the same time as it seems as though God has you beginning a season of ministry. Why don't you move into this building, plant your church here in our building, and we'll just give you the keys.
We understood that the church was not ours. This was God's church. And so we had to give it over to God. And we didn't know exactly what that was going to be, honestly. We didn't know Christ City. We didn't know the people. But we felt God was leading us in that direction, to be obedient to Him and to just release it into His care.
What they didn't know is that we'd been praying for 2 years that we would have a church building that we would be able to plant in. With real estate costs being what they are and development being what it is in this city, we knew that that would have to be an act of God. And so, in the summer of 2013, they handed us the keys as a gift.
it was very, very overwhelming to see how you can have amazing plans and you can be following God, and then He has a better plan. And He's so faithful, and He really did provide above and beyond what we could have asked as we were getting ready to plant Christ City.
They said, hey, we were hoping to plant with 100 people. And right away, we went home, we talked about it for a couple minutes and said, yeah, absolutely, this is where we need to be.
The first day this church opened up again, we came back here, and we haven't gone anywhere else since.
We feel we belong.
Yeah. The good Lord has answered our prayers in such a beautiful way that now you think about how our church is filled with young people, young couples, and that is such an answer to prayer.
God has more than answered the prayers that we prayed a long time ago.
I think initially when we prayed in faith, but we did not have vision for this abundance that God has provided in community and the way that He's been at work, not just here in Vancouver, but now also in other neighborhoods.
Out of Christ City, South Vancouver, we were able to then plant a neighborhood church in Kitsilano, and then East Van, and then just very recently in Surrey.
And the fruit that we have had now in 10 years is visible with the fourth church plant coming. That is only what God can do.
It's just been amazing to see how God has worked in this neighborhood, planting other churches, planting now in Surrey, and maybe more planting to come.
I see the growth of the church through seeing the growth of the children, not just in numbers of how many kids there are now, but how they're talking about the gospel and how children become youth leaders and they're, mentoring the younger kids. I think that's an amazing indication of how this church has grown.
Christ City is, it's a dream. God has been so faithful, and I'm so thankful that we said yes, that we took that leap of faith, and that we trusted His faithfulness.
God is at work in individual lives, and He has changed me from being here.
I have seen God using Christ City as a place where people can come and feel safe to share their burdens and to receive care.
I can honestly say that through the power of the teaching and the messages, that has just reoriented my life to point to what matters. And it's Jesus.
My prayer for Christ City is that we would stay grounded on the truth of the gospel, the person and the work of Jesus, that Jesus came and He died and He gave His life for the church so that we could be an expression of His love to the world who are broken and in need of Him.
Nothing we're doing is new. It's just a continuation of what Jesus has always been doing. He made a promise that He would build His church and that the gates of hell would not prevail against it. And here we are, faithfully serving Jesus in 2023, having no idea that God would put us in the place that we are when we started this 10 years ago. There's a place to belong when you follow Jesus. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. It doesn't matter what your past looks like. It doesn't matter what your present is. There's a place to belong in the Church of Jesus Christ wherever you're at, and Christ City is just one of those places.